Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 14th episode of the Basement Podcast. I'm your host, Thucydides, and joining me today is the wonderful Lewis, Major, and quite possibly Bennington. Eventually, when he shows up. How you guys doing? I don't care. Here on the Basement Podcast, we're here to have some good times, hot takes, and just to generally make fun of liberalism and culture from a conservative point of view. If that makes your brain happy, then you might as well subscribe to us on YouTube, not on Rumble, because we're not on Rumble anymore, but you can subscribe to us on Spotify.
Really? We're not on Rumble anymore.
Whose fault is that?
I lost the password to the Rumble account.
Let's go!
But we're on Spotify now, and
eventually
we're going to be on Amazon Podcast. Yeah, we're legit. There's an RSS feed and everything.
Yeah, one day we'll hit like 3 listeners. It's going to be quite the achievement.
I think we've gotten a good 3 listeners on our Spotify, so that's kind of tough. But if you guys
probably all of which
Spotify,
are in this call,
leave a review. Yeah, that's true. Leave a review. Let's get some reviews flowing up in here.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, the theme of today is explain why. That's right. We're going back to the old format, the classic basement format. Before we start doing all these reviews and
we're getting vintage today.
Vintage. We're going back to episode 1 with the style. Let's get into it. Hang on. Oh, sorry. I thought I had a burp there, but I kind of just whiffed.
That was tough.
All right. Question number 1. Explain why communism is actually kind of tight. It's hard, isn't it?
Sharing is caring.
That is
sharing
is caring. It's like Jesus, you could say, was a communist.
Really?
He loved everyone the same.
That's
Remember,
true.
communism isn't about the dictator we have. It's about the Nazis we killed along the way.
It's about all the stuff we shared along the way.
It's about the Germans we killed along the way. That's what the Russians would say.
That's what the Russians would say. And the Ukrainians would say it's about the Russians they killed along the way.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Canadian Parliament would applaud. Okay, well, that went faster than I was expecting. I kind of thought we'd get into that one, but that's fine. That's fine. Question 2, we will get into. Explain why Justin Trudeau is statistically the hottest man alive.
Statistically,
with or without the beard?
that is the question.
That's a very good question. You choose.
Okay, because like without the beard, he just kind of looks like a finger or something. Like he does. I don't know. He doesn't look
a finger
crazy or anything. I don't know, man. He's just like he's just kind of generic. I don't know.
You're kind of right though.
Kind of like a little wrinkly, little funny. He no, with the beard though.
With the beard.
Though.
That was pretty good. I'll be honest.
That was his best arc.
It's one good thing he did as prime minister. Like, let's be honest,
good.
It was a good look. It made him look 40 and not like trying to be
12.
20.
Yeah, 100%. I think statistically, if you look at world leaders, they're usually like old and wrinkly. Joe Biden, Donald Trump. Sorry, Donald, I love you, but maybe not the hottest man alive. Generally, Javier Milei, he's impressive, but he's not attractive, particularly. But Justin has managed to be in power for 10 years?
Ugh,
something like that.
It's close to. It's going to be 10 years next year.
10 years.
Yeah,
and not because he's a good speaker, because he's not, and not because he's got great policy, because he doesn't, but because he is very attractive. That's all.
He has pretty decent hair.
He's got nice hair. He's got a good beard. He's skinny-ish. He's got that kind of Cuban skin tone. I don't know
why. I think Trudeau could really up his campaign if he just like made a deal, kind of like how principals do in high schools, where they're like, if I shave myself bald, then I'll do so and so. Like,
yeah,
he's like, if you vote for me, I'll shave myself bald.
If I win the next election, I will shave my head.
No one would vote for him.
No one would
Everyone
vote
wants
for
to
him.
see the hair.
Better yet,
Everyone
if I
wants
win the
him.
next election, I will take all hair off of my body.
Oh, on camera.
Hmm.
Okay, moving on after that. Explain why I feel so tired. Because I'm just always tired. And I don't know why. And I've been sleeping poorly, and I've started drinking tea. And I've done some reading before bed. And I'm just really frustrated because I always wake up late and I can't go to sleep.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm venting.
Oh, well, I was gonna diagnose your problems, but
Please
I guess
do.
not. Okay, so first of all, are you off of your screens an hour before bedtime?
Absolutely not. That's probably the problem.
That's probably part of it. Are you timing your sleep cycles?
Explain.
Okay, so sleep happens in about 1.5 hour stages, during which you are in a light sleep, which is called the REM phase, or the REM phase, and then that's the rapid eye movement phase when everyone's like when you're dreaming, for example. And then it moves into a deeper phase, and then it comes out again. And this is very easily measurable. And there's a lot of like research done. That's how people study sleep, is they hook people up to I forget which machine it is. It's probably, I want to say it's the ECG, but I'm not sure. And they can tell
electrocardiogram.
No, yeah, you're right. It's the electrocephalogram. I think it might be the EKG. It's one of the E something G's.
It's an EG. Electrogram.
Electrogram. And so what basically happens is when you move into when you come to the end of that sleep cycle, you are closer to being conscious, right? You're not as deeply asleep. So if you time when you need to get up with when you are sleeping lightly, it will be easier to wake up than if you're in a very deep stage of sleep. And so what you can do is get an app on your phone. I use the Sleepy Time app, but I know there's a lot of them, where basically you can just put in when you want to get up or when you want to go to bed, and it will give you the best times to wake up or go to sleep, respectively, that will align well with your cycles and give you about 15 minutes to fall asleep. So they kind of do the math for you. And I have found it's very helpful, especially if you struggle with getting up. And when I do get up on time with my sleep cycles, I do end up feeling less tired throughout the day. So that is the second thing that I would recommend. And I could give you a whole laundry list of other things to do to improve your sleep if you were interested. But that's my basic answer.
Alternative question.
Are the voices winning?
I was not expecting a genuine answer to that question. And I'm very glad I got one because I'm going to try all of those things now.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. The issue is for me, it's like I'm going to need some seriously powerful tea to knock me out because I will not be in sleep within 15 minutes.
Sleepy time.
Melatonin.
Sleepy time.
I'm scared of melatonin because I've heard
Screw
the more
melatonin,
you take
man.
it,
I've met too many people who are like, oh, I need to hit the hay. I gotta pop my melatonin real quick.
Crush a melatonin right now, yeah.
Like I can't sleep without my melatonin.
That is fair, but like I took it since I was like a child, and I have not died yet, and I sleep like a child.
It's not like dying, but like it's like people who get like dependent on it though. Like
I've heard it's pretty easy to get dependent on it because eventually your brain stops releasing melatonin by itself.
Yeah, because your brain.
That would be worth looking into. I think if you take it in small enough doses, it does help a little bit without becoming too much of a problem.
Okay,
that is my non-professional opinion.
I have some little 5 milligram gummies that I could dip into.
Oh,
the melatonin edibles.
Oh, that's the best. You know, kind of chills you out. I've also started drinking chamomile tea.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Which has kind of worked for me, but it usually takes about half an hour to kick in. Which, not terrible, but yeah. Anyways, question number 4. Explain why Gen Alpha is absolutely fricked, just screwed, absolutely cooked, completely and utterly doomed, on death's door, proverbially, socially
devastated.
Devastated, yeah. impending chaos. Sorry, I'm out of. You guys answer the question. I'm gonna look up some more words for doomed.
Skibbity toilet.
That's
Real.
correct. They
Skibbity
are
toilet has ruined a
ill-fated
generation.
due to Skibbity toilet. They are wrecked.
So, I
Because
think
of
doom
Sigma.
scrolling is something that like a lot of people are familiar with at this point, and it's something that's like obviously not a good thing. Like I think everybody has been wasted a lot of time doom scrolling, like filling their mind with brain rot. But for a long time, I was watching YouTube Shorts just because I never used Instagram, and I went onto Reels like recently, and the brain rot increase is so dramatic and unhinged. I was blown away at how like how how bad it's gotten. Like using AI to take a scene from an animated movie and just replace every single word with like skibbity or Ohio or Sigma or Riz or like it'll be like the most iconic scene and they'll just swap out all of the words to make it as brain rotted as possible. It's unbelievable.
man. That is unbelievable.
Okay, what is the actual appeal of Skibbity Toilet? I don't understand. Like maybe it's because I'm not 12 or like not like 4, but I don't understand why there are so many people that like it. Like obviously kids, right? But like I don't know what the appeal is to kids because it's just so stupid. But like maybe there were stupid things we liked when we were younger. But
That's
like
true, like ASDF movies and that sort of thing.
right, like that stuff was so funny. But then when I look back on that, I still think it's like somehow classier than Skibbity Toilet.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about this. Like people say, oh, Gen Z had their own thing back in like the early 2010s with Vines and stuff. But like also the humor that we had was a little more well crafted. Like if you look back on something like Studio C, obviously very famous for Scott Sterling, but also had a lot of other sketches, and their content even still isn't super brain rotty, Skibbity Ohio Riz, that sort of thing. But it's like if you watch one like The Restaurant of Life, it's very subtle humor and very well crafted humor that we just don't see with Gen Alpha stuff. And I think it's hard to compare because our humor wasn't entirely slang, but now Gen Alpha humor is 100% slang. If you don't know the words, it's not funny.
I wonder if like Gen Alpha humor is just because like internet humor is just continuously devolving into the point where it's just like because like I feel like the whole thing with like ASDF movies when we were younger was like it's the random abrupt silliness and the goofiness and unpredictability of it. It's like that one clip in VeggieTales that's aged like wine where it's like Larry's making the joke about like humor from the future and there's this machine. It's like, why did the chicken cross the road? And it's like, weed eater. And Bob's like, why is that funny? And Larry's like, it's funny because it's unpredictable. And I feel like that's what we're seeing, except just like
even more absurd.
Getting out of hand to the point where it's like, it's not even unpredictable. It's just like, it's at a point where it's like predictably unpredictable. Like literally, like the entire sense of humor for Gen Alpha is just like doing something really stupid and silly and having no other context. Like I feel like I use analogies a lot when I'm talking to people, and I feel like I always go to I always go to the idea of like food, and I feel like our humor was some kind of dish and the silliness and randomness was like a sauce or something you were adding into it. And like admittedly there was probably a lot of it, but I feel like Gen Alpha is just the sauce. Like there's no substance to the humor. Like it's solely just ridiculousness. Like just being silly.
That's a very good analogy, actually.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
I think going back to doom scrolling and that sort of thing. I was just thinking about this, but like you can't in 60 seconds or 90 or 120 seconds, whatever it is on Instagram, you're not going to fit any meaningful quantity of meaningful information. I mean, going back to like my university experience, which we'll get into in a later episode, the classes are 2 or 3 hours long to cover one topic, right? But if you're going on YouTube Shorts or TikTok or whatever, and it's like you have 3 seconds to buy someone's attention, and then you have 57 remaining seconds to explain this concept, and you have no opportunity for review. You have no opportunity for anything, any sort of in-depth explanation. I mean, the example I use of this is there's this video that a lot of people I'm sure have seen about like a better way to tie the strings on pants, instead of just doing like your typical shoe knot is like the special thing. And I saw that and I was like, oh, cool, I'll try that sometime. And then I wanted to try it, but I have no idea how to do it because I saw it once for 30 seconds. And so I had to go back and to find that video, which finding shorts is awful. It's brutal.
Yeah.
And then I found it, and then I watched it like 4 or 5 more times, and I could not get it because in that amount of time you have to keep someone's attention, you can't fit meaningful information in that. I think the Gen Z attention span is like 7 seconds or something, which is
That's
ridiculous.
wild.
You're not fitting any meaningful information in 7 seconds if the first 3 have to just grab someone's attention.
Well, I feel like the other problem too with shorts and reels and stuff is like, let's say the lace thing, for example, trying to do a knot, is I feel like a lot of this content, they're not actually trying to teach you something, they're trying to get you to watch it. It's the same with like cooking videos. They're not cooking something to teach you how to cook it. They're cooking something because it looks interesting and it's visually appealing and the end result is satisfying. Like nobody watches a like 1 minute cooking tutorial and then follows through with it. Not often. Like people do follow those tutorials, but I feel like 90% of people will say, "Huh, that's cool," and then they'll flip to the next thing.
They want to give you the impression that you've learned something, even though you haven't.
Right. So, like, back to my point. My point is that like it's less about teaching their audience and more about engaging their audience, which I think is the problem with that kind of content as well.
And then when you condition people that everything has to be short form content, suddenly the only room for humor that you have is the Gen Alpha, like absurdity, randomness, just spontaneity, sensory overload. There's just no time and no attention to go into a well-crafted joke with a significant setup. Like there's
you can't build a punchline.
Yeah, like that video, the longest joke about congestive heart failure you'll ever hear. Or You're Here Today, I think it was called.
No, I haven't seen that.
I've seen it.
It's funny, but it's like 3 minutes long for a punchline that is 2 words. It's this very long setup, and there's no way that any kid is going to sit through all of that nowadays. It's remarkable that people our age sit through that because, I mean, it's the guy talks about congestive heart failure for 3 minutes and then ends it with your mom, which is hilarious. But it's like you can't, in that amount of time, you can't set up a joke. Anyways.
Okay, that's actually pretty funny.
It was gold. But I think for all of those reasons, in the words of Kevin O'Leary, I'm out. Gen Alpha screwed.
Gen Alpha, it's in the words of Gen Alpha, we're so cooked.
So cooked. Literally beta.
So cooked, chat.
Odd Sigma Wolf gang, whatever the thing with the horns is.
Speaking of Gen Alpha slang, occasionally, like I have a group chat with my family members, and occasionally my dad will say something like "we're cooked," chat, and I'll just like I don't know how to react to this. React.
Absolutely bust out laughing. Oh man.
like it was one of the best things my mom has ever said was there was a solar eclipse and she quote unquote said the moon is going to mog the sun today, and I laughed so hard because it's like it was used correctly, the context was accurate, and which was wild. I thought that was so funny when she said that, especially because like you don't expect these people from like another generation to say something
in the 60s and 70s to make that joke,
right? That's like it's crazy.
It's wild. So anyways, this leads me into my actually Lewis, did you have anything to say?
No, I think you guys about summed it up.
I hope so. That was a long one. My next question, number 5, which leads into the Gen Alpha thing. Explain why we should change the naming scheme for generations for Generation B. And I'll go first. Because think about it. Gen Alpha, these kids are obsessed with being alphas and sigmas. And what are alpha and sigma but Greek letters, right? Think about it. They're Greek letters. And the next generation up is going to be, with the Greek letter naming scheme, Gen Beta. And all these Gen Alpha kids are going to rip these Gen Beta kids to shreds just for being born in the wrong year.
Okay,
So-
but also if you were born in what Gen Beta,
Gen Beta.
everybody Gen B, everybody's gonna say, "Oh, we gotta be better. We can be better than you guys." There's a lot of
That might be a little too
opportunity in
clever
there.
for them. I think that might be a little bit too
Honestly,
highbrow humor.
honestly, I think puns will be too
Eradicated.
neurologically complex for Gen Beta.
Fair enough. But
You're right though. They're gonna have they're gonna get like bullied by their parents consistently.
How does it make you
we're
feel?
going to
that
be
the
their
people-
parents.
It's
Oh,
like every.
You're right.
How does it make you feel that everybody watching and enjoying Skippity Toilet now will be taking care of you when you're in a nursing
Oh
home?
my god!
That's-
Don't even remind me about that,
That is
man.
terrifying. Also, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Bennington back.
Hello,
we're
Bennington.
talking-
Hello.
We're talking about.
I'm
why
here
we should
late.
change-
I'm here late, folks.
No worries.
I arrived late.
We're
I
talking
arrived
about
late.
why we should change the generation naming scheme. And my theory is we should change it to the radio alphabet, because if you think about it,
Oh yeah.
what sounds absolutely fire? Gen Bravo.
Oh.
Yeah.
That sounds
that's
like
pretty
so
fire.
lit. Which also means that down the line we're gonna get a Gen Foxtrot, which is hype. Gen.
Yes.
Charlie Delta.
Oh,
We should
that
just
makes me
Generation
not gonna
November.
go by
lie.
all the military terms. That'd be so much
Yeah.
better.
Gen November.
Change
Gen
it to the
Romeo.
change it to the phonetic
Oh,
alphabet.
can
you
you,
mean?
are you? Oh my goodness, that sounds so cool.
That it sounds so hype, right?
Generation Delta.
Oh,
Generation Echo.
kind of unrelated to what we're saying, but this reminded me of an ad that I saw when I went to a movie recently.
Oh yeah.
And it was for the Canadian police force, and it was the most hardcore cop ad I've ever seen.
Actually,
Yeah,
That's
dude.
nice.
It was it opened up with a school shooting or a mall shooting, and then an off-duty officer
God.
helping civilians, and then the SWAT going in and all their tactical gear and patches and stuff, and it was this super hardcore
Wow.
hype thing about protecting the people and serving your country.
I think the tagline
It
was,
was-
"This is why we serve."
that goes
Yeah,
so
it was great.
insanely hard.
It went so hard. I was like, yeah, I'm so glad we're getting back to this. Because for so long, ads around the police force and military have been, for some reason, appealing or trying to appeal to the people who would be the least interested in taking
Mhm.
that opportunity. There was that
Yeah.
super infamous commercial that the United States Army did a few years
with
back, where it was
the girl with the two moms on the ship.
yeah, and it was
so neat.
it was these are my two moms, and it was animated like a cartoon. It was the least, nothing about that would resonate with the people wanting to join the forces.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why,
No, you have a
why
point,
was that
Major.
why was that promoted? Why was that their campaign? It
There's
didn't
literally
make
no
any
reason
sense.
for it to be promoted, right?
Yeah,
there's
it
no
was
reason.
yeah, it was weird. But yeah, anyways, that was my little tangent. Really glad to see that that
Yeah,
ad
well
in the
done.
theater. Yeah, it
Well
was cool.
done.
That's great. Okay. Question number 6. Explain why Donald Trump is indestructible. I heard a
Bro,
very
they
good
tried to take
theory
it-
on this.
The
They tried to
second
take his-
okay on
They
the
tried to
on
take
the,
his life twice and failed, right? They missed. They were too
Mhm.
scared of him.
Maybe-
he just
maybe they
exudes-
shouldn't have used an AK on the second attempt.
Yeah,
My
true.
word.
It
Yeah,
was an
an
SKS.
SKS.
Okay.
Yeah,
SKS,
like,
I
you're
think.
not hitting nothing with that,
No.
dog.
Bro was using an SKS.
With like
Yeah,
3
58-year-old man
500
holding
yards
an
away.
SKS. Yeah, that's gonna go
Dog,
right.
throw rocks at that point. You're about as likely to hit him.
Mhm.
Yeah, that explains why nobody got shot.
Now, do you think that Trump should be more cautious with where he is in public now that there's been 2 attempts on his life?
I think the Secret Service needs to step up.
I kind of think on one side, I do understand the idea of image and him being like, well, I don't want to look like I'm in hiding. I don't want to seem like a coward or anything. But on the other hand, like it could
Not a lot
like
of
you
use
could
dead.
get killed, bro. Like
Mhm.
Well, not
Dude.
only that, but like I feel like it would be like it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this seems like an interesting thing for his campaign, being like, oh, he got, you know, whatever twice. Like they tried to shoot him and failed, you know, right? Like
yeah,
the
it,
guy is just like
adds
that.
adds a lot of steam to the campaign.
Mhm.
It does.
So I think what's this is kind of a terrible point to make, but I was thinking about this. I'm glad they didn't shoot the second shooter, Routh or whatever his name was. But if they had, it would have made a point. Like they didn't show what happened to the first shooter because his head would have been removed. I think Brandon Herrera did a video on what happens when you get a 300 Win Mag to the head, and you don't have a head after that. And if they had done something like that to
I
the
saw
second
that
shooter,
video that Brandon Herrera posted. Where
it sends the message
they
that
talked
trying to kill the president will get you killed. But the fact that this guy is alive is maybe not the best. It's not like I'm glad he's alive. Obviously, he should have a fair trial.
It's not the best. Well, it's not the worst image,
it
but
doesn't-
it's not the best image either.
It doesn't make the point that you can't just go around shooting presidents. Like if you're gonna do that, you're gonna get killed. And the fact this guy's alive shows that maybe the Secret Service isn't so dedicated to protecting the president or the future president or the former president as they maybe should be.
Well, that being said, they didn't kill John Hinckley Jr. when he attempted assassination on Ronald Reagan back in '81.
No, it's true. And Reagan actually
Then
got
again,
shot.
Then again, he only did that just because he has an obsession with Jodie Foster at that time. So,
but yeah, so it's just it's interesting when we're leaving these presidential assassins alive. It kind of undermines the gravity of political violence because it should like obviously murdering anybody is bad, and in an eye for an eye justice system you're gonna die, but the fact that this guy is alive, it's good. Like obviously, again, I'm not saying this guy should die, but
no,
if you're the government, maybe it's like, ooh, maybe if they had just returned fire on this guy and killed him, suddenly it's like, oh, maybe being a presidential assassin is a pretty bad career choice.
Yeah, it's like maybe,
kidding.
like it's exactly. And like maybe I don't want to run the risk of losing my life over this, so I'm going to not apply for said position. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but now all these guys are handcuff models instead of coffin models.
Indeed. Coffin models. It's just like, oh my god, that I just had a really funny but morbid thought.
Actually, I don't think
somebody actually modeling
the
for a
first Trump
coffin
shooter
company.
will be a coffin model.
Yeah.
Open
Modeling
casket
for a
that
coffin
would
company.
not end well.
No.
Okay. Imagine you're a coffin company and you run ads with like faces of famous dead people.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That would be, you would get sued for that by all the families, but it'd be really funny.
No, you would. Yeah,
what is the point of like? What's the point of fancy coffins? I can't understand this.
I don't get it either, Major.
Flex your
I don't.
wealth going to heaven.
Me like
It makes everyone else feel better.
okay, but like even there's like the padded inside, and it's like I'm not sleeping in here. I'm being buried in here.
Well, you're sleeping forever in there.
I'm dead. I can't feel anything.
Like, I guess it's a way of saying like I'm dead, but I got cash though.
Go to go to Home Depot and like buy a couple of pallets. And then just pull off the planks and make a coffin and call it a day. I can assure you, my comfort will not be bothered in that pallet coffin.
I mean, hey, honestly, like,
I've even seen
let's
comments
save some space, okay? Fold me in half and shove me in there.
Yeah, I've even seen comments saying, "Why are coffins so expensive? Like, bury me raw for frick's sake."
Yeah, the worms are gonna get me eventually. Make their job a little easier, team. Although it's kind of gross lowering a stiff body into an open hole and then just pouring dirt straight on it.
No,
But
Like,
also, draping a
it's good.
flag over that doesn't look quite as good as draping a flag over a coffin.
Hey, it's good for the archaeologists in like 2,000 years.
True. Yeah, I'm sure it's very good for them.
When
This
I
guy
die,
was
I
a
want the words
president.
"Watch this" engraved on my tombstone.
I'll
You
be
want
back.
watch that? Watch this engraved on my tombstone.
Watch
Mm.
this.
Buckle up!
Yeah.
I saw something in a cartoon I want to try.
You can always say grave robber or archaeologist. Okay. Question number 7. Explain why Kamala Harris is the worst presidential option of all time in 5 words or less.
Word
Choose-
salad.
Very, very well said.
That's all I have to say. Word salad. Major. What about you?
I
I'm
wrote this,
gonna
but
be
I haven't
real.
even thought about it.
I haven't like kept up extensively with American politics as of late. I've seen like 2 or 3 cartoons of Kamala Harris, and that is like essentially all I know about her.
Yeah. Oh man.
So my
I'd
impression of her is that
probably,
she's just a short lady with a weird laugh and no like no
Indeed.
like social capabilities and like tons of inconsistencies. That's my general impression. But I don't know.
That's your Freedom Tunes impression,
Freedom
which
Tunes
is
Yeah.
actually
sketch.
fairly accurate. Everything that you just
Oh,
said.
of course.
Yeah, no, it is. You're not wrong.
If I do 5 words or less, I would say barely better than Joe Biden.
Yes. Barely.
Mhm.
I mean,
not.
she is not.
Well-
She's not like deceased. So I think that she does have that going.
Deceased.
Joe-
Where the heck
Joe-
is Biden anyway?
Yeah,
Joe's
where's
had
Joe?
some better days.
Joe's living it up on the beach.
I
think-
love
where?
I love that
He's
one
not-
clip. That one clip where someone's like, "Some people say you're not as sharp as you used to be, Joe," and he goes something like, "Oh, my mind is still sharp, all right. You see, this thing is where you need to go, and when you do the thing, and you see, back when I was running, like, and he instantly, like, the only words he can form is, 'Oh, it's still sharp, all right,' and then spirals into a tangent of like incoherent blabbering.
Yeah.
I know.
It's actually hilarious. I feel bad for the guys. Let him retire. Let Joe
No,
retire. Joe,
Like,
Let him
you know
rest.
what?
guys, he's
I'm gonna be honest.
he's just a burning memory. Like,
Can I be honest? I don't. You know what? I feel. I don't even blame him. I'm the one blaming his wife. Like
Yeah,
Jill
friggin'
is
Jill.
like sitting there, like Dr. Jill, if that's whatever they want to call her. I don't want to get into that, but you know, like what is going on there? Like
feel
we
so
all
bad for
know.
him.
I legitimately feel bad for Joe. Like I
actually think he has like a dementia or something. Like,
no, and
you think?
that's very true. But Major, I actually want to
You're
run
kidding.
this theory by you, and it's something that I've been thinking of, and
okay.
it's the idea that Biden himself was actually was actually a pretty moderate politician, right? And yet he just pandered to the mobs because that's what you do when you're a Democrat. In fact, I remember watching his Wired autocomplete interview because they did that, of course, for Biden because Wired is very liberal in the States. And they're like, "Is Joe Biden a Democrat?" And his response was, "What a silly question, man. What else would you be but a Democrat? I'd have to change my name if I were to not be a Democrat." Because he was trying to be funny there, but in reality, it was like, what? What was the reason behind saying that? But in my opinion, I think Biden was a pretty moderate person, and he just pandered to the mob because he was supposed to. What do you think?
he was-
know extensively of Biden's career or American politics in general. I know a decent amount about Canadian politics, but I've never been
True.
overly invested in what's going on in the States.
Mhm.
Which is why I can't say for sure. Like I mean, obviously my impression of Joe is that he's not like, ooh, maybe time to put him in the nursing home, but But
Put him in the
like,
nursing home, or at least
I-
retire. Go back to
I-
Delaware.
I'm not a
Go
big
back to
fan
Delaware.
of,
Enjoy your
of
retirement in
talking
Delaware,
about
man. You've
something
earned
that
it.
I'm not a big fan of talking about something that I'm uneducated on or like
No,
uninformed
it's
on.
okay.
So like I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, topic of American politics is a little like wishy-washy for me, just because I don't know like
Okay.
I don't know for sure what I'm saying or what it's backed up on. I just have like impressions,
true.
and that's
All
kind of
right.
all they are. Nothing I say should be taken as like hard fact.
No, as somebody
No, don't
who's
tell them that.
who's known major IRL for like 3 years, we should all know that. That question should actually be directed at
Stop.
Thucydides of all people, because I'm like, I guess
Uh,
Thucydides, you seem to know the most about American politics out of
I
any
am.
out of all of us here. So,
I'm
what are your
very
thoughts on
invested
Joe
in American
Biden being a moderate?
politics. I mean,
Really?
that was Joe Biden running as a moderate was kind of the whole image of his election. Was he was supposed to be like Trump was like, oh, he's this hard right Nazi, and then it's like, oh, Biden, he's like I think in the words of Larry Elder, he's a get around.
That was the
goer.
same-
Can we do a deal?
That's
kind of
true, but
guy.
That was the same thing with Obama back in 2007
Mhm.
and 8. I mean,
And
my-
it doesn't matter
from
what
what my
image they
grandmother has
cater
told
to.
me. That's true. I
It's
mean,
just-
like from
they're
what my
all
grandmother
liberals.
has told me, Obama ran as a moderate,
Mhm.
but then he turned out to be like the least moderate person you've ever seen in your life. So
Uh-huh.
anyway,
So
Lewis, what do you think?
Kamala Harris, if you look at voting records, she is more left leaning than like
Extreme.
he's more than Obama, more than Clinton.
yeah, more
yeah.
than
Definitely more than Biden. She has
more-
been
definitely more than
consistently one
Biden.
of the most liberal voters in the Senate in her time.
Lewis, she's more
Mhm.
left than Bernie Sanders,
which is saying something, yeah.
there. That is saying
which is
a lot.
which is really saying a lot.
I don't
So,
know
Bernie
a
Sanders-
lot about Bernie Sanders other than the fact that he's old and that there's the meme of him asking for
He needs
financial
money.
support.
I am
Yeah.
once again asking.
Yeah,
I am
and of
once
course-
again if you're financial support.
Exactly. And he's got a strong Brooklyn accent, and he was a senator for Vermont, of the state of Vermont, for like a number of years.
Wasn't
The
Vermont
state
the
of
one
Vermont.
state that kept Reagan from having all 50 in his second term?
Yeah, I think it was. I mean,
think it
like
was Vermont.
like Reagan won in a landslide, I think in was it 1980? It was called the
whatever
October
his
surprise,
second
if I remember
term-
correctly.
Whatever his
Second term was
term was.
84. Second term was 84.
But anyways, my 5 words for Kamala Harris is no one hire to sleep with. Her
sorry.
main achievement
I'm
was that
so-
she kept like working her way up the ranks as this
By
like
sleeping
DA
with the higher
to,
ups.
prosecutor to DA to AG or whatever. And then it's
Yep.
like, yeah, Yep.
There's no
when you're
like
the
there's
president,
like
who's left?
there is no way she wasn't sleeping with the higher ups in order to get to where she
Oh.
is. Which I
Oh,
will
she
admit,
was.
is
Ben Shapiro
very-
editor.
no, that's true. I mean, Ben Shapiro. I mean, like I will admit, like it's more common now than ever in Washington and in the deep state and all that. It's actually more common than ever. Take a look at Monica Lewinsky back in 1998.
Mm-hmm. I did not. Okay, we're not going. We're
Anyway,
not getting,
yeah,
we're not
let's
getting into,
let's not go there.
yeah. Okay. This one is probably a little more for Lewis.
Okay.
But actually, this is the one or two questions I let Lewis preview.
Wait, before you launch into this, my brother hit an alarm clock in my room and it's going off and I have to figure out where it is to turn it off. So
Bruh.
give me a second.
What? Why?
It's gonna blow! It's gonna explode!
What is that even doing there?
Oh, it's a
Okay.
brother shenanigan. Okay. Anyways, the
Thucydid-
question is.
Thucydides, if you cut that out, I will murder you.
Oh, I cut nothing out of these.
Okay.
Also, good luck murdering me. I'm well armed.
Yeah, so am I, man.
Bro,
Oh,
I
anyways.
gotta get my license.
You got to get your
So do I.
Canadian firearms license.
I do. I need
I've
to
been
get
meaning
my...
to do that for like the past couple of years. Major, you
Oh,
and I
yeah.
really need to get on that.
I've wanted a garbage rod for a while.
You didn't go
Yeah.
with Luther when he got his?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Okay.
We
He
didn't.
sent me a message on Discord. He's like, I got my Canadian firearms license, and I was like, gangster.
All right.
Anyways,
Bro, you sounded just like Luther when he said that too.
I know.
He's really good at doing the announcer voice. Anyway, carry on.
Announcer voice. Okay. Question
Where
number
is
8.
he? He should
Why-
be here. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
It doesn't exist. Oh, he's online.
I may have hit
he heard
snooze,
his
so if it
name
goes
and
off
just
again, then my
appeared
bad.
on Discord.
You may have hit snooze. Lewis, what did you do?
It will go off again probably in 5 minutes, but I don't know how to stop it.
Okay.
Oh.
So
Just-
just a mental preparing for those that are listening or watching.
Yeah. Okay. Question number
You guys
8.
are gonna hear a beep 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 beep. So
Question
don't
number 8.
be alarmed if you hear a
Why
don't be alarmed
is-
if you hear an alarm.
Everybody actually not ADHD or autistic or special in any particular way. I'll
Why-
give my
like-
theory, and then we'll let Lewis cook on this.
Well, I'm sorry, I was distracted. What was the question?
I have to.
Why
I have to give my
everybody
opinion on this
secretly
too.
isn't ADHD or autistic or special
Isn't?
is not. Because you hear a lot of people nowadays self-diagnosing themselves with autism or ADHD.
That's the
Uh,
reason why, because it's self-diagnosis.
Yeah, and
People,
here's the thing.
people look at one symptom and then they're like, "Well, I have this or I have that," and it's like, bro, you got to get like professional. If you think you
took
have
a quiz
something,
on Tumblr, and you're like, oh, you know
right.
what?
go get
I'm
professionally diagnosed. Because here's the thing: a lot of people have tendencies and symptoms from a lot of different like mental functions, like disabilities, right? Like
that's true.
like even like for someone with OCD, like a lot of people who don't have OCD still have OCD tendencies. They're just dialed back a lot. So somebody
That's
could look
true.
at one of those tendencies and say, "Well, I do this, and that's a symptom of OCD. Therefore, I have
Mhm.
OCD." A singular symptom or two symptoms is not conclusive proof to prove
Major-
you actually have a disability.
If I
Mhm.
can add to what you're saying, Major, it's like, I mean, I'm about to drop a truth bomb here and admit to something, but I
You
was
better be
actually
good, because you're hyping it up.
I was actually professionally diagnosed because I myself, I mean, those who know me IRL know this. I myself am on the autism spectrum. I was diagnosed professionally at 2.5 years of age. But what I notice, especially when it comes to people that I've come into contact with, is that it's either a self-diagnosis with someone like ADHD or OCD or autism or something like that. A lot of times when you get like a professional, you know, psych assessment, sometimes that's even misdiagnosed, which is a
Mhm.
lot more
Yeah.
which is a lot more upsetting than it was in, for example, 2006 when I was assessed. But that's, I mean, because that was 18 years ago. But yeah, no,
it is
I
weird
see
how
what you
everybody
mean.
thinks that they says that they have ADHD or this or that. Oh my goodness, I saw this. I won't explain the whole video, but I saw a clip that somebody posted online, and they were like, "Oh, I was recording this video of myself, and then my ADHD acted up, and it was them sitting in a car, and then all of a sudden they started looking at nothing and grabbing the air, and that has nothing to do with ADHD. Like,
No, it doesn't.
I was blown away at how like for one that
How
there are
inaccurate
people
that was.
online who pose to have disabilities and they act, but it's like they don't even put any research into it. Like
No.
that's something in general that really frustrates me.
The
Is like
research is TikTok.
I'm not advocating
Yes.
for people to go out and lie and to like do something bad, but I hate it when somebody only puts in half the effort. It's like when you see people driving around and they have the N on the back of their car and it's like tucked 95% behind their license plate. It's like, just take it off then. Like, you're not properly displaying it, so don't have it on there at all.
It cracks me up because people always use these like mental disorders that are kind of hard to diagnose as a crutch, right? Like I had a boss who was like, basically as soon as I met him, as soon as I got the job, he's like, yeah, I have dyslexia, I'm ADHD, like whatever. And I was like, okay, why are you telling me this? He told me that I was probably dyslexic or ADHD as well. And the reason he does this is because it's a crutch, right? It's an excuse. One day he's like, oh, I didn't sleep very well last night. I didn't take my ADHD meds. So I'm just going to be useless all day. And he was useless all day. And I'm like, this is your company. This is your business.
As
You work
as
just
as somebody
fine if it's
who
something you want to do.
as somebody who has actually been professionally diagnosed with ADHD, like I'm always disgusted and frustrated and appalled when people use their mental disability as a crutch or an excuse, because the struggle is real in certain ways. There are aspects that are difficult, but everybody struggles with things in different ways. Like I'll struggle with things because of the way my brain is, but I never complain about that because it's not worth complaining over, because everybody is going through something in their own life in a different way. Like everybody has their own struggle and their own crap that they're going through, and it's not an excuse for you to say, "Oh, well, I have ADHD, so I can't do this," or "I have autism, so I can't do this," or "I have OCD, so I can't do this." It's like the reality of those disabilities is that they're there and they have side effects and they do make life difficult, but it's not worth or right to complain about that. Like it was really frustrating for me one time actually at my old job. I I mentioned that I had ADHD in conversation casually, and I don't always like mentioning it in a workplace setting, just because like I don't want people to think that like I'm using that as an excuse or something. Like if they think I'm slacking or behind, I don't want to be like, "Oh, well, it's my ADHD, sorry." Like I hate doing that. And
No,
I
same.
mentioned that casually, and like half an hour later, they didn't like the way I was doing something, and then I disagreed with them. And after I disagreed with them, they were like, "Oh, well, you're just blaming your ADHD." And I was like, "Excuse me, that's not what I said. Like I didn't say I did not blame my ADHD for this." Like I actually was very frustrated with them because it was super rude. Like for the record, if anybody has any like mental I guess disability or whatever, it's really rude to say, "Oh, well, you're making an excuse on your disability," especially if that person makes an effort to willingly like be okay with that and to put in the work and to go the extra mile, right? Like
Yes.
I would never complain about the stuff that I struggle with, even though it is difficult sometimes, because it's not worth complaining about.
That's correct. And if I can interject briefly, as someone who of course is diagnosed with autism, which of course its full name is autism spectrum disorder. So let's focus on that second word, spectrum. Now, if you look at what a spectrum itself is, it's a variety of different things, right? Well, when my frustration is that I have mentioned in casual conversation and only around certain people that I myself am on the autism spectrum, or I have been diagnosed with autism. Well, I use the phrase "on the spectrum," which has become widely used and widely accepted now. But people automatically assume stuff, right? Because again, nobody seems to understand that it is a spectrum. They seem to think that you're either, weird like David Tennant in Doctor Who, or you're weird like, Freddie Highmore as Sean Murphy in The Good Doctor, or, Dustin Hoffman as Rain Man in the movie Rain Man with Tom Cruise, or like nobody, or at the worst, you have nonverbal autism, which I've worked with kids who have nonverbal autism. And it's really frustrating to bring it up and that you have something like autism or ADHD or OCD or stuff like that. And then people automatically assume the worst. They assume that you're just a dribbling mess, or that you're, this or that you're that, when in reality you're not. And then the problem is you automatically put yourself in a box that's hard to break out of.
It's actually funny. Oh, sorry. No, you can.
Yeah, let's
I was just gonna quickly say that I think that's probably one of the more damaging things about people. This tendency that people have to self-diagnose or to use clinical terms in casual language is that it comes from a lot of misunderstandings about what these disorders are. Like it comes from a lot of assumptions and like genuinely from a lot of stereotypes. Just the very shallow surface of what a lot of these disorders is. It stems from that level of understanding, and then it perpetuates itself by using these terms in very very loosely, like, oh, I'm so OCD or I'm so ADHD or whatever. And when it becomes like dumbed down like that, or when the language becomes cheap, it just continues the stereotypes. And so it kind of just becomes the cycle where people they don't understand or they don't appreciate the level of research and professionalism that goes into diagnosing some of these things. And then they just make life worse for themselves, because they will hurt people perhaps who they know who might have these things, or it will impact their relationships in some way. And then people who actually have a lot of difficulties with some of these things will also be hurt because they feel constantly misunderstood. That's just,
Exactly.
I was going to throw that in there.
Yeah, 100%. It's yeah, and of course what absolutely freaks me up about this, what gets me so upset, is when
What
people
drives you up the wall.
What grills my cheese, you might even say, is when people use
That's good.
when people use mental disorders for clout, right? You see it on
Yes.
TikTok and
Oh,
YouTube
it's
all
horrible.
the time.
Oh
and I
my
think,
gosh, it's absolutely appalling. No, you're completely right.
like the YouTuber Misha Petrov has done a really good job compiling a lot of these people, and so I'll probably link her below because she's interesting. But she pulls all these TikToks. I think a lot of them are libs of TikTok too. Is just people who are like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna go to this other like personality in my brain, and they're gonna drink bubble tea for the first time, and you're like, what are my eyes seeing? Can I have some bleach now? So you have somebody faking like schizophrenia, or multiple personalities, and people make jokes about like, oh man, nobody in this room knows I have schizophrenia, and then it's a picture of an empty room, and that's one funny joke. But then you have people who are like, oh, here's my other personality, or oh, I'm talking to this other person in the room. And it's like, what about somebody like Nash? I can't remember what his first name was, but it's the guy about who the movie A Beautiful Mind is about. And that dude was like,
Oh yeah.
full on like schizophrenic. And what's crazy is that he didn't like, oh, I'm schizophrenic, I'm just gonna be useless for the rest of my life. Like, no, he went on and wrote incredible, like did some incredible research in math on finance and business and that sort of thing. And so when people start, like you said, Lewis, making it cheap, start, faking it for clout, suddenly the people who are actually autistic or OCD, the people who are, nonverbal or, overwhelmed by the amount of sensory input they're getting, it's like you're just diminishing, you're lumping yourself in with them. It's like saying, oh, the best violinist in the world, like Hilary Hahn and frick, I don't know any other violinists, but and then me, I'm right up there. It's like, no, you're not. Okay, they're in a class entirely by themselves, and you are using their name to make yourself seem better. And that, anyways, that is my hobby horse soapbox that I am standing on.
That's true. These are mics, and they are dropping.
That's right.
And I think Major was gonna bring something up as well. I forget what it was though.
And then we should move on to the last question.
Yeah, I think Major was gonna mention something as well. I'm not sure.
Oh no, it's okay. We can move on.
We can move on.
All right.
Okay. Final question, team. Explain why, whichever reason you choose, you think that not everybody should be allowed to vote.
Not everybody should
Have
be
you ever
Women,
wanted to
because
restrict
they're
the rights?
consistently more liberal than men. I'm
You're
joking.
including yourself in that one.
This is
I'm
coming from a
joking, I'm
woman's
joking.
standpoint too. What the heck?
I am joking. Don't come after me. I think that women should have the right to vote, but
No,
it's
no,
true.
of
They are
course they should.
consistently more liberal than men, and they continue to
true.
be.
People who were legal citizens of a country
Should,
Like-
should or
Yeah.
should not be allowed to vote.
should.
Okay.
People who are not legally from the certain country, like, oh my God, I'm not even going to get into that. I'm also stuttering. That's good.
It's good.
It
It means you're
does
angry.
feel like it should be like the basic requirement, but it is kind of controversial nowadays because
I think, like, I wouldn't be against them increasing the age to vote. I feel like people's brains should be fully developed before they're making choices. Also because, like, a lot of like obviously we're all like right wing.
That phrase can be used in
leaning,
so
right?
many arguments, Major.
Like so, a lot of the people obviously in school systems are kind of conditioned to vote liberally. Like the whole system is built around voting liberal. So
Yes.
if you were to like lower the voting age to like I feel I don't quote me on this, but I feel like a few years ago I heard rumors of them wanting to change the voting age to like 16 or something.
I do believe this is.
This is in Canada or the
conversation
US?
for a while.
I think that's Canada.
Like, and I think that is a horrible idea. I don't think anybody should be voting at 16. It doesn't matter if you're liberal or conservative or anything. I don't think I actually think it would be healthier for the country as a whole if people could be like properly developed before they vote. Because a lot of like I don't know, a lot of people just kind of don't really understand what they're doing with their vote, or are very like, especially if you were 16 and voting and you were coming out of school, no doubt you're going to vote liberal. Now you have every kid in the country voting completely one side.
Yeah,
because the loyalty's been bought through what they've been taught in schools.
Yeah, and all those and the province-wide curriculums and all that, which stems from the federal government anyway. So, excuse me.
So
I'm really sorry. My sinuses are bothering me, so I apologize if that gets picked up on the mic or not. I apologize
no
if it
worries.
does.
Don't apologize if it doesn't. I think when it comes to voting, age is a factor. Like 16 is definitely too young to vote, but like 18, 19, depending on where you are, is maybe also not necessarily too young or too old, or like 25 when supposedly the brain stops developing significantly. Maybe that's because like you can have some really dumb 25-year-olds and some really smart 16-year-olds, like myself, for example. I'm just kidding. I was a really dumb 16-year-old. But I think instead of having a
I'm sorry, that was
having
funny.
a flat across the board age, it should really be more tailored. So like a test that requires that if you're going to pass the test, you understand the platforms of the parties in the election. So in America, it'd be pretty straightforward. You can say the Republicans can write the answer to their question about what is the Republican Party platform on this stance, and the Democrats can write their answer and what the Democrats say on something like foreign policy. And then if you want to vote, to register to vote, you have to take and pass this test that shows that you understand the policies of both parties. And then once you pass that, if you do,
but
then it's like, okay, now you can vote whichever thing you think works.
Okay.
Because then each party, there's no bias. Each party's writing their own answer.
Okay, that's a good idea. However, my argument for that is that, of course, you've probably seen, especially in the US, that some members of the Republican Party are actually pretty woke. And some of them are actually have like tendencies that don't really align with the generalized Republican Party. And their influence is probably greater than a lot of these other people. So I don't know how well that would work, but it is a good idea.
Well, yes and no. Like you have like the rhinos in Congress.
The rhino.
Yeah, Republicans in name only.
Yeah.
But you also have like a different set of Republicans in something like the RNC, which are going to be more aligned behind the president. Which is hopefully, an actual Republican, because they go through all the primaries and the people of the Republican Party in every individual state can vote on that. So if you're having someone like the RNC, which is, who's backing the president, if they're writing it, then you can kind of avoid the rhinos, and maybe they're all approved by certain members of the party or whatnot. And I'm not really sure
I see. So
exactly
you're saying that
those
tests could be essentially headed or at least, overviewed by the RNC and the DNC respectively.
Or by the Trump and Harris campaigns, so that each campaign, because this would be a presidential thing, can each write their own platforms. That is the test.
Well, here's the problem. If the Harris campaign is talking about their policies, they're not going to have anything up there. because their
That is
policies
the
don't
one
exist.
flaw, is they won't have anything.
They won't have any policies. It'll just be like a blank sheet of paper.
Hey, that means if you skip that question, you still get it right.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any reason to restrict people's rights on voting?
Make
I
sure
like
dead
voting.
people can't
Voting.
vote.
Voting is cool.
So
In
true.
general.
That's good.
So true.
Make sure dead people
This
can't
is gonna be my
vote.
first
and
election, guys.
That's fair.
and speaking of the elections in Canada, for those for our listeners and watchers in the province of British Columbia, there is a provincial election coming up, I believe, on the 19th of October. I have just sent in my application to be on the voter list, and I'm gonna be honest. I encourage every single one of you listening or watching to do the same, regardless of who you decide to put your vote in for. Doesn't really matter to us, but we just encourage everybody to. Well, I personally do. I personally encourage everyone to get out there and make sure that their own individual voices are heard. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, get out and vote. All right,
yeah,
well, that's
October
gonna do it.
19th. Don't miss it.
Don't miss it. Also, November is coming up. I am actually watching with much bated breath about whether or not 47 will provide cheap groceries or civil war. Anyways,
Yeah,
that has
you
been
know what?
all.
Cheap groceries.
That's all we got for today. And if you guys liked this episode of the Basement Podcast, if you managed to stick around for the entire 1 hour and 3 minutes that this podcast is run, then please subscribe.
Pretty awesome.
You owe yourself that much to subscribe to us. If you're listening
Yes.
on Spotify, leave us a review because that helps us out immensely with the Spotify algorithm. Like this video, comment ideas for topics, anything that you could possibly enjoy. And yeah, goodbye. Say goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Music's
Bye.
playing.
Bye.